make sure that we have that recorded. I also ask you if you could take a moment and type into the chat box your name and your email. We're hoping to follow up with folks after the event to be making sure we're providing links to resources and things that we'll talk about today. We are going to be going through a lot of information today, and we want to make sure that you receive it afterwards. There are resources at the end of the PowerPoint, but we will also be forwarding many things on to you after the event. So if there's something that we reference that you'd like more information on, we will be sending a lot of those things out, but also feel free to reach out to us afterwards. Sarah, do you want to do a quick introduction just so folks know who you are?
Yes, I would love to. Good morning. My name is Sarah Williams, and I'm also a collaborative network consultant with the Jackson Collaborative Network. Yeah, all the things that Amy said, we're excited today to, yeah, I'll just say like ditto to everything you say today. So we'll just do that. Yeah, we're excited to talk about authentic engagement and all of the different things that people think about when they think about authentic engagement, and then also, yeah, how to use it as a tool. We'll be focusing on today, and we'll walk through steps. But like Amy said, we're really also, we've hopefully working hard to really find ways to engage people as we meet virtually, which is new for us. And since we can't meet in person and can't do this together in person, we're trying to be creative in ways to be engaging with each other virtually. So this is our valiant effort, and we are here for it.
We don't have an overwhelming amount of folks. If we want to take a minute to just unmute yourselves and do a quick introduction, like we said, we're trying to make as many connections as possible. So if you want to unmute, make a quick introduction, your name and organization, that would be really helpful.
Hi, my name is Lisa Hendricks. I'm a community educator for Blue Cross Complete of Michigan, one of the Medicaid plans for the state of Michigan.
Excellent. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Abby Davis. I'm with the Health Department. I'm the coordinator of teen pregnancy prevention.
Hi, Abby.
Hi, this is Aaron Massey. I'm a nurse case manager with McLaren Health.
Thanks, Aaron.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Gansel, and I am the Great Start Families parent liaison. I also work with trusted advisors in the community.
Thanks, Jen.
Morning, Jen. Thanks for being here.
Hey, good morning. I'm Jeremy Frew. I'm with Jackson College.
Morning, Jeremy.
I wonder if they're not on or what.
Hi, Rhonda. I think we can hear you.
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Well,
Yes, Greg, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Greg Hardwick. I'm a trusted advisor. I'm also the diversity multicultural coordinator with Northwest High School. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Greg. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle White. I'm the Director of Health Education, Health Promotion at the Health Department, which means WIC, Hearing and Vision, and Health Education.
Thanks, Michelle.
Rhonda, can you hear us? So not to call people out, but I know she's having some audio. Rhonda, can you hear us? No. Okay. Well, we could see you. If you can hear us, we can see you. Good morning, Rhonda. Thanks for being here. Oh, no. I'll type it in the chat. I don't know if people want to keep
Can you look
going.
at this for a minute? And I know they're talking.
To Rhonda.
Hi, I'm Susie Turple. I'm Director of Care Experience at Henry Ford Allegiance Health.
Good morning, Susie. Thanks for joining.
Morning.
Hi, good morning. This is Nancy Peters-Lewis, and I'm with the College and Career Access Center.
Hi, Nancy.
I see Sherry there. Are you unmuted?
I did. It's always hard. Who goes next, right? So Sherry Butters with the Jackson Collaborative Network, and my role is network manager. I am just here to be a fly on the wall today and listen. So nice to see everyone.
Thank you. Scroll through.
Hi, this is Sydney Brown. I'm a College and Career Advisor for the College and Career Access Center.
Good morning. anyone else that didn't get a chance to say hello?
I am Brian Green. I'm also with the College and Career Access Center. Good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
Morning. So I think that might be everyone. We can always, if we have anyone pop in later, they can always enter their email and name, and you can keep an eye on that. I had a chat. Rhonda cannot hear you. She cannot hear us, going to get some new headphones. So here's hoping that Rhonda can tap in with us later. We'll check back in. So I might have control of the slides. So Amy, go ahead.
So good morning. So, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start out. I know a lot of folks in our community have done some amazing things with authentic engagement. So we're going to just kind of see where we're all at. What is it that you think of when you think about authentic engagement? So if folks could just take a minute to type into the chat some ideas that they have when they think right off of the bat, when they think authentic engagement. What does that make you think of? We'll just take a minute to see what folks are, where they're at. I know a lot of people do a lot of different ways of engaging folks. And today our focus will be actually on authentic engagement. Jeremy, excellent. Sincere engagement. Genuine interactions, Abby, that's excellent. Yeah, Michelle says speaking directly to the population experiencing the problem, for sure. Meeting people where they're at, not waiting for them to come to you. John, excellent. Abby seconds my sentiments, John, about meeting people where they're at. Nancy, intentionality in conversation with active listening. Excellent. Intentional conversations and listening. Brian Green says genuine interaction that involves effective listening and appropriate steps to meet needs in real time. So I don't even know why we're doing this. It seems like everyone's really got a good grasp.
That's great. Yep. All right. Well, it was a good meeting. Thanks. Just kidding.
We'll do more than just answer a question, move on. Excellent, Mary. Yes, we tend to try to sometimes shortcut, and that doesn't work. Follow up. Yep. Close that loop for sure. Okay. Those are some amazing ideas and some great perspectives. We really appreciate folks chiming in, and it sounds like we have a lot of really good ideas on what authentic engagement means. So we're going to define it today by authentic engagement is about ensuring that those most impacted by social challenges have a say and are part of designing and implementing solutions. So today we're really going to focus about, as many of you said in the chat, it's really about relationships. So it's about meeting people where they're at, being authentic, intentional listening, all of the things that you folks said, and making sure that it is about connections and relationships. So often we have gone into community events or reached out to folks that are experiencing problems, but not necessarily in a genuine way. We've maybe made a contact or asked a survey or things like that. So today's really going to be about making sure it's authentic and making sure it's about relationships, and that includes following up, closing the loop, getting feedback from folks. Oftentimes we'll say, we'll make sure we have diversity in our organization or on our board, or we'll invite them to the meeting, things like that. But it's not just having people show up. We want to make sure that we understand that it's really about having relationships and trusting that folks in the community know what they need, and making sure that we are authentic and understanding their needs. So we can diversify our boards and we can diversify our meetings and we can bring folks to the table. But it's really about making sure that you're building trusting relationships. So that's a lot of the focus that we're going to kind of talk about today. Sarah, do you have anything else to jump in on that one?
No, I think that's great. I think just talking about, and I love too in the chat, how people are talking about not just having people on sitting at meetings or like having a diverse thing, but actually like so many people in the chat talked about having authentic engagement and actually authentic relationships and meeting people where they are and considering that authentic versus like just inviting them in. So I love that so many people said that. I will ask if everyone is not, if you're not speaking, if you could mute yourself just to limit the background noise as we go through. That would be most helpful. So as we move forward, this may look familiar to some of you because we have used this circle. We call it the action learning process. We've used this in a couple different slides. We talked a lot about it in last month's convening. And this is really a great way to make change, right? To authentically gather data, use specific data to identify inequities, understand why things are happening, design strategies, measure them, implement, track and progress, all while implementing authentic engagement. So we went into this process a little bit more in depth last month, but we will likely continue to use this, this graphic just because it really talks about the importance of using these steps to really authentically use data and using authentic engagement as a data source to understand why things are happening and then implement appropriate strategies. Oh, Sarah, I think, is it possible to mute you? We're hearing some background noise. Maybe I'll send her a message. So today we are going to use, we're going to talk about authentic engagement, which many of you have talked about, but we're really going to talk about using it as a tool to understand root causes and to understand why things are happening. And so it's not just about, like many of you mentioned, it's not just about, you know, making sure diverse voices are heard, but it can be used and should be used, right, as a part to help an organization or help a team understand root causes. If we move forward, so this is a lot of different authentic engagement continuums. This graphic was taken from the Able Change Guide, but there are many different similar continuums where it talks about the different ranges that a community member or a population can be engaged. So just to give a little bit of an overview, to the left would be, you know, less engaged, to the right more. So on the left, you've ignored, there are no attempts to engage anyone, maybe they're silenced. If you are a recipient, maybe the, residents or community members participate in services. Maybe they're given information about decisions that have already been made, but don't really have a voice. A consultant might be, in addition to the recipient role, maybe people are asked for their input in an advisory role, but they don't really have any influence over decision making. They just are giving information that helps other people make decisions. At the partner level, in addition to being a consultant, residents or community members actually have influence over final decisions. For example, like what problems should be prioritized and how to design strategies. And this is really where people start feeling empowered. And then change agent on the very right, in addition to partner roles, community members or residents are taking part in implementing actions such as collecting information about the community, analyzing the information to identify targets for change, co-designing and implementing strategies, and engaging in ongoing learning. So you can see the arrows too. I think that is really helpful when you're thinking about how involved or how engaged residents or community members or your population is. I think that's helpful to understand. as the continuum goes.
Okay, we're going to get fancy on us in the Zoom meeting. So this is a little bit of a messy slide, but we're going to ask folks to actually go up to the top of your screen where it says View Options. If you click on View Options, the third one down will say Annotate. When you click on Annotate, you'll see this bar come up where the red arrow on the left says Stamp. If you click on Stamp, we're going to ask folks to click on that button and place right on the screen where you think your organization is. So be thinking about your organization and be thinking about how you're reaching out and engaging community members, and place a stamp right on the screen where you think your organization might be at along this continuum.
And it doesn't matter which stamp. I think originally we said star, but really we probably won't. Oh, someone.
Okay, there we go. We've got some consulting. We've got some partners.
Ooh, on the line. I like
Ah, we got some folks on the line.
Look at all those people that are right on the line.
That's awesome. I want to remind folks that there's that little red X to the right of where the stamp is, and you have to click on that to stop stamping. So I've gotten a little carried away on here in the past where I continue to stamp because I forget to X out. So remember that little red arrow on that bottom bar. I want to make note too that this is a continuum and that we certainly don't want anyone in our community ignored. But there are roles for many people at many stages that when really not, the goal is not to get everyone to change agent. There are individuals in our community who are really competent and really have a lot of things and really eager to be a change agent. And in that regard, we certainly want to make room for them at the tables and make sure that they are part of co-designing and implementation and things like that. But we're not pushing, the goal is not to push everyone to become a change agent. There are many people that have a lot of really good insight, but are comfortable not necessarily designing the program, things like that. So while we definitely want to encourage more change agents that come from our community, there are spots where folks might just be wanting to consult with you and then go back and continue on where they're at. So we don't want to push everyone. We certainly want to have more change agents in our community, but certainly we don't want anyone in the ignored, and very little in the recipient if at all possible.
No, I love that you said that, Amy, too, because also I think the goal, right, is not to get everyone to be change agents, but maybe to like increase the opportunity or
Yes.
for people to choose where they want to fall, right? Or maybe to increase, or maybe to change the culture within an organization and how they're thinking to then offer up the different roles as opportunities, but again, to have that choice piece to be with our community members. Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, now you got to clear slides there and move to the next.
Do
Does
we
anyone have
want to
questions?
ask
Yeah,
anyone
actually,
if
let's
they
take a
feel?
minute. Does anyone
Well,
want to
I wanted
unmute?
to, yeah, and share. I want to hear from some of the people on the line. Like, what does the line mean? So there's most of the participants who put their star on the line between consultant and partner. I'm just wondering if anyone feels comfortable sharing why they did that.
I'll share. Again, my name is Abby. I'm with Teen Pregnancy Prevention, and we have a community advisory board, which I feel is more in the consultant phase at this point in time, but I want to, being that I'm new and we're rebuilding and just trying to figure out different ways to get community partners involved, I want to move it more towards a partner arena.
Awesome, thanks, Abby.
This is Susie with Henry Ford Allegiance Health. We also, I think I'm on the line for a couple of reasons. I mean, we've got a patient and family advisory committee that we've had for a few years, but we are in the midst of doing new work intentionally to partner with the community. We've recently added a director of community engagement. We have started an LGBTQ clinical council and appointed a patient liaison. So we're moving now quicker than we used to in the past, and I think it's a cultural shift. So I don't think we could say we're truly partnering with all of our constituents in the community, but we're making great strides.
And that's the whole point, just continuing to make strides, making sure that not only are you listening, but that they're actually part of the solution. Folks know what they need. Our community members know what they need to succeed. And most and many have tools, but we need to make room to have them part of the design. Anyone else want to share?
I would, if you don't mind, Amy, Sarah.
No, that'd be great, Jen. Thanks.
There are, I think that all of this conversation is incredibly valuable and much needed, but there are steps that all of us can take within our own organizations. Maybe a place to start is just the way that we and our people with the boots on the ground, our frontline staff, just talk to community members. Mm-hmm. Their physical, their body language, the language that they use. Some of the trusted advisor feedback is so simple that one of our trusted advisors referred to a person she speaks to by name, and he stopped and turned around and said, I don't remember the last time someone called me by my first name. I mean, our hardest to reach community members are kind of, they're disgruntled. They're feeling left out and not part of the conversation, not heard. And it's really comes back to the way they're treated and the way they're spoken to when they're trying to access services that we're all tasked with offering.
Yeah, that's excellent insight. It really, I mean, it's the relationship piece. It's not, it's being authentic. It's making sure that we're engaging them in a way that is respectful and trusted. That's hard to do because there have been many, it's a long history of asking or deciding on many's behalf until we engage them. It's going to be baby steps, but I'm super excited about the community and organizations that are really intent on making this happen. Okay, Sarah's clearing the slide.
Listen, I'm sorry about that. I clicked on your screenshot of annotate thinking it was my screen of annotate.
You're closing out.
Sorry about that.
All good.
Right. Clearing out and clearing out. And
okay.
Oh wait, before we go, Greg, did you have anything you wanted to offer? I'm not sure if
Greg, if you want to unmute yourself.
He's on mute.
I was just I didn't really have nothing to say. I was just messing with the buttons.
Oh, that's I do it all the time, Greg.
But I was listening to Jen, and Jen hit it right on point.
Yeah.
Trusted advisor, as we are here in the community, sometimes just walk up to people and just sitting down and having an authentic conversation with them, not just trying to service them, just ask them how things going. And that just shows them that deep down inside, they be like, wow, he just really just took the time to ask me how was I doing. Not trying to point me in a direction or anything, just to have a conversation, just engaging me and just showing me that, he cares about me. And that's what we do. And like at the shelter, that's why I was telling my wife, I just love being at the shelter because just to sit amongst people that are hurting, sit amongst people that's trying to find their way, and they see, someone that they know, hey, I know Greg do this, that, but just to see me there, it gives them hope. And a lot of them tell me that, man, Greg, I wish you could be down here every day. And I tell them, I said, well, I have to take that up with my wife. But just, just building that relationship. And I think you hit a key, just building relationships to people to where when you go to service them, they know it's authentic. They know that, hey, Greg is really trying to put me in the right spot because he cares about me.
Yeah, you hit it right on, Greg. That's amazing. And I know you do amazing work in the community and you're immersed and you engage. And like you said, it can be as simple as sitting down with someone and listening and or a warm smile or an acknowledgement of where they're at.
Right.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for that.
Thank you guys. Mute myself. Uh-oh.
Sorry. Yes, sorry about that. I was trying to help another participant get into our meeting via phone and password. So apologies for the I've learned it's hard to screen share and also type in chat. That's my, sorry about that.
Nope, you're all good. We'll move on to the next slide.
All right.
Okay. So there are a lot of ways to engage community members. We all know, we've all tried a lot of different things that, there's existing interactions where, you have folks in your waiting room, or you're sitting on a park bench and asking them questions. There are folks in just that that interact with on an everyday basis, coworkers, things like that, that you can kind of ask probing questions to gather information. Many of us have done surveys where we've done sent them out via Survey Monkeys and social media surveys, things like that. We've done a lot of individual interviews. Some call them empathic interviewing, where you can sit down and have a series of questions with an individual for half hour or an hour, and kind of really pick their brain on things. And I know many have done focus groups where they've brought 8-10 people in a room and asked a series of questions. All of these things are effective ways to engage community members. What we're going to focus on today is actually a system scan. This is one of a more complicated ways to engage community members, because it does encompass a lot of the things above, but we really feel like a system scan is a really good comprehensive way. So there are many things, there is no right or wrong way to engage. Well, there's better ways to engage. But today we're going to be really focusing on doing a system scan. So again, there are, the way we would define a system scan is asking questions with a diverse group of people to understand community conditions influencing targeted problems and possible solutions. So diverse group of people is really the key in this definition. It's not just asking one focus group of moms about an issue. It's really kind of going to be crossing a lot of borders and making sure that we're looking at different ways of engaging different audiences. And I think, again, this is a system scan can be really complicated. We're going to walk through some tools and ways to do that. Sometimes if it's a simple problem, it takes a simple interaction, but this is really for more complex problems that we're trying to kind of gather information on. So this is going to be our focus today.
And well, and we thought it would be helpful too to actually walk through the process of doing a system scan. And so we, like Amy said, it is a series of gathering different types of data, excuse me, to understand different perspectives. But we thought it would be helpful today to have part of our time together to actually walk through it, what it might be like to go through the process as if we were all sitting together in the same organization as a team. So we'll take some time to do that. Greg, if you can hear me, if you could mute yourself, you're getting a little bit of background noise. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we talked about how complicated this is and why it's so important, and I kind of pointed out that diverse group of people is really important. This is the parable of the 6 blind men, and it's one of my favorite things because it really focuses on diversity. So 6 blind men approach an elephant, and they are asked to describe, without obviously sight, what they are seeing or what they are understanding about the elephant. And you can see that if one of the gentlemen comes to the rear of the elephant and grabs the tail, they might describe it, oh, this is a rope that we're looking at. You might have someone that comes right up to the side of the elephant and they put their hand up on it and they say, oh, this is a wall, right? So that's their perspective, that the elephant might be a wall. Someone that grabs a tusk might say, oh, this is an arrow or a spear that we're looking at. If they're grabbing the tusk, it might be a snake. So depending on where the individual approached the elephant, they have a different perspective on what it actually is. And I think one of the keys in this parable is when an individual yells out, it's a rope, the person that is at the side of the elephant might hesitate and be like, oh, that individual doesn't know what they're talking about. They're lying. And all of a sudden now community members have a mistrust with the system. So if our only perspective is, say as a provider, our only perspective is what we're seeing in our very narrow perspective, then the community member or the patient might feel like, we're actually staying in, we're good. I've got magical mute buttons that I have on my end. But I just think that feeling of mistrust, I know that there are a lot of organizations in our community and community members that say they don't trust particular organizations, because if we're not getting diverse perspectives and if we're not going cross community, we call it what we see it. So I call it that it's a wall, and the person at the end of the elephant is looking at me going, that is ridiculous. It's not a wall. They're lying, or they're not understanding that it's actually a rope. So it just kind of goes to show that I claim something to be my absolute truth because that is the perspective that I see. And we have to open up to understanding people on all sides of the elephant. What might be true, and it's not necessarily mistruth. If I don't have the full picture, it's not going to make sense, and I'm going to build a community of mistrust. We're going to give.
I think this is, I was going to say, I love this. No, I think it's so great. And I think that for any of us, like even in my work, I don't know, I just think that it's important for all of us to acknowledge that we have different perspectives and lenses, and that all are important while we're doing this work. Obviously, we're on this call together, so I would like to imagine and believe that we all value authentic engagement as an integral part of the work that we do. But I even wonder, like when I think about authentic engagement, or I think about a system scan, like am I actually considering all perspectives? And when it comes to a system scan, it's not just the people experiencing the problem, which we'll talk about in a little bit, right? It is like all of the people around it, people who are supporting and providing, and we'll talk about that. But I love this visual for a lot of reasons. Does anyone on the call have any thoughts, or has anyone seen this before? Any immediate reactions or feelings? Greg, do you have a thought?
So what?
Oh, I just thought I saw maybe you unmuted yourself. I wondered if you wanted to pipe in or not.
I'm messing up.
You're all good. This is the world
No,
we
that's
live in, Greg. No
okay.
worries.
We're just trying to navigate the virtual world together, really. Doing
Some days are better than
best.
others.
It's very true.
Susie
Is
used
that
this. Yep.
Susie?
Said, yep. She's used this with her children, and it still works with adults. It does. This is one of my favorites. I feel like it's really powerful because it's not denying that what we're seeing isn't necessarily what we're seeing. It just gives a perspective of what I see in my little world, and my little bubble is not giving me a full picture. We really kind of have to reach out to make sure.
I think it's so important too, because I'm also like, I will own that as like a seeker of like justice and truth and all these things, I am quick to jump to a lot of like what other people think or experience is actually not right, or like that can't be true because of this thing. But like to see this perspective is super helpful for me to be able to like understand that people's lenses and perspectives, right? Like I'm up here at the organizational level helping organizations, so my perspective is going to be so different than someone like Jen or Greg who's on the ground level, and all of it is important in completing the picture, and all of it is important as we gather data together to look at the full spectrum of the problem. But I think that this is so I don't know, I think this is such an important visual.
Yes, Sarah, I was going to say too, I have not seen this diagram before, but in the community work that I've done, it's either you see when different perspectives are shared, you can watch body language and facial expressions from those sitting around the table, and it either can be acceptance or judgment. So, there might be an aha moment where everyone is agreeing like, wow, never thought of it that way. That's great. But then on the other hand, there might be a reaction of judgment. So I've seen both.
or even resistance. We're doing a training now, and one of our graphics is that communication is only 7% of the spoken word, and the rest is tone and body language, facial expressions. So even though somebody could be nodding, their frowny face says, I don't agree with you at all. You don't understand me. You know, so that's a really good point.
Yeah, that's an excellent
Oh,
point. Sydney.
wow.
Can you repeat that
Gives me
statistic?
something to think.
7%?
7%.
Yeah, 7%. I'm trying to remember. I think it's gosh, maybe 30% is tone of voice, and the rest is body language. I can I'll share it with you guys.
That's awesome.
Thank you. That definitely gives me something to think about as we do these Zoom calls all the time, right? No, but what an interesting perspective too. And to Michelle's point, like, and we're all different, but I tend to be pretty like authentic and transparent in like how I feel about things, and I don't have a good poker face. And so, and Amy is laughing because she relates and or agrees. And but it's true, right? Like I feel like when we talk about things and either virtually or in person, like how much that matters. And Michelle, I love that you brought up the empathy piece, because I think in order to do this work well, right, like there has to be a dose of like humility that comes along with it, where like I'm coming into this, I'm sitting at this table, or I'm a part of this group and I'm doing this work like from my lens, and I know that this is my lens, and I know that Amy is coming and she's bringing her lens, and I know that Susie's coming and bringing her lens. And I do think that it takes a team of humility to like really do the work authentically and to do it well. And so I love, Michelle, that you brought up the like empathy versus judgment, and like are we checking our egos and like making room for everyone in all of the space, right? So anyway, yeah, no, thanks for all of that. Do we miss anyone else that wanted to pipe in that didn't get a chance to talk about the elephant? I love that Amy found this graphic, and we've had lots of conversation about it, and I just think it's so helpful. It looks like, is that Lisa in the chat said that it was her first time seeing this, but she loves it. It makes 100% sense. And Sherry said, I was thinking the same thing about challenging myself to consider the diverse perspectives of family members when engaged in discussion on hard topics. Yeah, this can be used like universally, right? Like work, professional, personal. That's great. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to remind people too, there's also that raise hand button. So if you don't want to type something, but you want to unmute yourself, feel free to hit that button too. I hit a lot of buttons randomly, so I've figured out something.
We're figuring this out together. We are here together. We're powering through. We're going to do it. So let's move along. So this is a kind of a snapshot of the system scan design guide. This is from Able Change, and it is a tool that the network uses, but it's not necessarily the only tool that can give you answers. We will walk through the questions below today as we like walk through a system scan together, but just know that it's not the end all be all. It is a helpful way to help walk through connecting, and also the point of our action learning plan, the blue circles in it. This really mirrors the same thing. So step one is the what is our targeted problem, really lines up well with the action learning guide and where we start, and then how do we move forward in the circle. So what is our problem? What do we want to learn about the problem? And then which perspectives and settings do we need to engage to help us understand? And then what is the best way to collect the data? So just note that the system scan is really, we're not even talking about strategies. We are really focused on our problem, what we need to learn more about, and then who we need to engage to learn more. So we'll start here. This is our system scan. And just to remind you all, we are walking through the system scan as if we are a team together. So we chose an example of what targeted problem do we need to focus our scan on. And so we chose, like many teens are experiencing unwanted pregnancy. Please know that for the purposes of today, this is an example. We are not going to solve all of Abby Davis's problems today, although maybe that's why she came, just kidding. But we're using that example because we thought it would be a good one to focus our attention on and our efforts, and to help us frame like what other questions are needed. So if we start with our problem statement, we know that, for example, many teens are experiencing unwanted pregnancy. We know this because maybe there is health department data, maybe there's CDC data, maybe there is a point where we know this to be true. In order to move through the system scan, you have to know that a thing is true because of data. You're not just pulling it out of thin air. That there is a way that we've already have data to confirm the problem statement. We want to make sure that when you're talking about step one, that we're not using like a general problem statement, like there's a housing problem in Jackson would not be a great targeted problem, because it needs to be something that is population focused that can be solved, right? So it can't be just that there's a housing issue. It's not a great targeted problem. We want to make sure that we make a population-based statement.
I'm going to jump in there too.
Yes, please.
Part of making sure it's population-based is we really want to keep it general. So a lot of us will jump to assumptions about the problem. We'll say, well, there's not enough mentors for teens, or there are not enough clinics for teens to have, contraceptive, things like that. So those are our assumptions that are coming into it. We just want to make sure that it's about what we're seeing.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Amy. So, so our step two is, what do we need to learn about the targeted problem? So some of you may recognize the little diagram off to the right. This is, we lovingly reference it, the clover leaf, and it is from the Able Change guide, but it really is a way for people to dig down and figure out what are contributing factors that are contributing towards the problem. So if our targeted problem is an increased amount of teens are experiencing unwanted pregnancy, we would put that in the middle of that diagram, and then we could figure out what are some things that we need to know that are contributing to the problem, right? Because that will help us design the strategies. But we have to figure out what things are happening, what is contributing to this. And so we like this tool, again, one of many different tools. We like this one because it really gives examples of some questions that can be asked to different characteristics of a problem. I think the next slide will give us a little bit bigger of a snapshot of the tool, and you'll see that there are different characteristics of a problem, right? Like there might be connection pieces around, if your problem is an increased rate of unwanted teen pregnancy, maybe there are a lack of connection between different organizations, or maybe a pregnancy prevention program and young moms. Maybe there's not a connection there, right? So like there are different characteristics. Regulations could address policies and procedures. Maybe there's a mindset question around beliefs and values. So this diagram is really a great tool to help drill down and find out more about why a thing is happening. So we are going to move into a breakout and have a chance to actually draft some of the questions that, if you were in a group together, sitting together with a team of people, and the only information you had so far was that there was an increased rate of teen pregnancy. What are some other questions that could be developed to find out more about the issue? And actually, I'm going to switch Amy because we have 15 participants. So I'm going to switch our slides.
Okay. Yep. Whatever works. So I want everyone to direct their attention to the chat. In the chat box, I have posted, and I hope I went through a Word document of the cloverleaf. I'm going to ask folks to bring that up because when we do break out, and I understand that some may not have computers and they may be calling in, but when we do break out, we're going to actually go through the different sections of that cloverleaf. So if everyone could just click on that in the chat, bring it up on their computer. When we get into the breakout rooms, we don't have ways to have things up on the screen. So we're going to break out into 2 groups today, and we're going to have group 1 be looking at the mindsets, components, and connection questions of the cloverleaf. And group 2 will be considering the regulation, resources, and powers. So that little piece that you brought up, for example, so group 1 is going to look at mindsets, components, questions. There are questions in that cloverleaf document that we just linked to you that would say, so for instance, on the component question, it would say, are there ways or an array of programs or supports for, or lack thereof, contributing to the problem? Those are the questions that it kind of makes you think about. What we want you to do is put yourself in the concept of teen pregnancy. So we're going to walk through this. We're going to say, okay, within the realm of teen pregnancy, in what ways is the array of local programs or supports contributing to this? So a question that you might come up with in your group might be related to that. So a component question for teen pregnancy might say, are there sufficient education classes offered in the school system related to sexual health? That would be a component question. So each group is going to take 3. The first group is going to think about mindsets, like what are their mindsets? Don't answer the questions. We want to make sure that you're not saying, well, the mindset about teen pregnancy is this. We want to know, what more do we want to know about mindsets? So try to keep the questions pretty general. The question might go to teens and it might go to providers. So you want to keep the questions in your head that really can relate to different folks. Does anyone have any questions before we break out? Is everyone able to access the cloverleaf? Maybe give a thumbs up if you are able to have that.
This is Nancy. I have a question just to clarify. So we have the clover leaf, and if we're in group 1, we're looking at the mindsets, components, and connections, and we're not looking specifically at the clover leaf questions. We're actually coming up with our own questions. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Your own questions around the idea of teen pregnancy. So if you're looking at mindsets and you're thinking about teen pregnancy in Jackson, what are some questions that you would need to better understand people's mindsets in our community?
But Nancy, they might, the example of a question, it might look very much like that example.
Okay, so the question in the cloverleaf box under mindset is just an example. Is that correct? Okay, so those are all examples, and just to help us get our minds wrapped around creating a question.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, we want to make sure that today we're actually not solving the problem and we're not answering the questions. We are developing the questions that will help us understand more about the problem.
Okay, now I have one more question just for clarity. So mindset makes sense to me, a mindset question. Power component. So component, can you kind of, in what ways is the array of local problems? I'm just thinking about component. What, can you give me some further examples of that?
Yeah, so components are really what is existing in our community that might be contributing to this. So like my example was like, are there sufficient education classes offered in the school system related to sexual health? Are there programs, are there supports for teens? Are there mentor programs in our community that might be not, prohibiting teens from understanding sexual health and behaviors and things like that? So it's really, components are really more about programs and supports that are in our community that will either help or hinder the problem that we're looking at.
Okay, so what is already existing?
Right. Connections are really about like, are there connections between organizations? Are there connections between, say, a healthcare system and a social service system? Are there connections between residents experiencing it? That's really more about community connections. Regulations are really about policies and procedures. So if you're looking at, say, lack of housing, right? Are there regulations or policies or procedures that inhibit it? If are regulations within the school system related to sexual health or contraception or things like that, that might be, so those are some of the questions. Resources, do we have, financial resources in order to support this problem, or is there the allocation of resources appropriate in the right groups that we're dealing with? And power is really, really what it says. And there could be power dynamics anywhere. It could be at organizational levels. It could be amongst legislators, could be with a array of different things. So this is really in going around this circle. And again, this is a tool. There's many other things. It gets you thinking about what do we need to know about this problem? And it really pushes you to address a lot of different characteristics of the problem. So sometimes we jump to conclusions about, oh, it's just services, or it's just a program, or it's just because so-and-so doesn't talk to so-and-so. And this really gets to making sure that you're diversifying your questions so that you're really reaching out in all of these different areas.
Got it. All right, I'm ready.
And we actually, Sarah and I will be jumping into the chat rooms to facilitate and answer questions. We're going to let you all do the talking, but we'll be there to answer questions. Any other questions before we break out?
And again, this is not like, yeah, it's an opportunity just to kind of even have this discussion that we're having now. So thanks, Nancy, for like helping us get there too. But hopefully that this will help us think of some questions that we can then consider our systems and questions to then move forward. So let's see if I can.
Okay. So folks
do
have that,
and then
Cloverleaf up. I'm going to make sure that we are.
And then we'll have 10 minutes in our breakout, and we'll come back at 11:05.
Okay.
I know.
Oh, look at this. You guys are really, I should have.
I know. We thought you'd separate us.
I'm not very adept at this. I'm getting there, but so if y'all want to designate someone that will report out, maybe that will jot down the questions that you come up with. You can maybe.
Mind. I'll report out.
Excellent. So this group is group 2. So we're looking at regulations, resources, and power questions. So the first thing is thinking about regulations. What are the questions that you might ask if you were dealing with the issue of teen pregnancy? What questions related to regulations would you want to know?
What are
regulations as far as teen pregnancy?
Yeah, so we're actually just walking through this as an example. We're pretending that we're tackling the problem of teen pregnancy. And we're going to say we need to have some questions that we're going to ask a diverse group of people about what are the regulations that might inhibit or prohibit or help teen pregnancy.
What are the laws regarding distribution of contraception? Things like that, like in the schools. So, right, what are the schools allowed to do? What are the rules about distributing contraception?
I think along with that, Michelle, I would like to add, I would say we could add a question as far as like procedures. Me coming from the Medicaid background, is there guidelines or procedure that a Medicaid plan can come in and educate the students or pass out literature? I'm thinking, I'm trying to think outside the box.
Yeah, no, that's good thoughts. And Abby, you're jotting all these questions down? Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure. Any other thoughts on regulations that we might want to know about?
Would this be about like the cost of things? Like,
It
I
could
don't have the
be.
questions about regulations right in front of me. I wish I had that clover leaf in front of me, but I don't. Well,
Yeah.
maybe that might be resources, maybe more. That's more resources. I don't know.
It might be resources. The question in regulations is what policies, procedures, or other rules and regulations are contributing to this issue?
Okay. Policies, procedures, and rules. Yeah.
So I have laws regarding distribution of contraception in schools, and then guidelines or laws on education and literature to disperse with schools and students. Sound good?
Yeah, I think another one would be, sorry, like in schools, like the policies as to who can teach an evidence-based program, and how would that fit with academic requirements, just like policies and procedures of where and when can you fit that in the school curriculum.
And does it need parental permission? Some parents want to teach that themselves and not leave it up to the school system or the world, as I would say.
Awesome. How about questions about resources? So the resource question is, in what ways are local resources, for example, human, financial, community, or the allocation of resources contributing to this issue? And what would be some questions about resources that we would want to know in order to find out more about teen pregnancy?
I'm reading the question again. I have it pulled up over here.
I'm trying not to do all the talking here, but
I appreciate it, but go ahead.
Is the cost, so is the cost of contraception for males or females a barrier? Based on going to a clinic, health insurance, just buying condoms? Is that?
I'm gonna piggyback off of Michelle again when she brought up the health insurance part, because I do work for Medicaid. Does the insurance cover the contraceptive? Does it cover the birth control, the condoms? Does it cover education as far as teen pregnancy?
Good questions.
Is there money and grants available to offer evidence-based programs for who's doing the education, like based on how do you pay for it? Resources of people, mentors,
Community partners,
parents, people, and mentors. It's like human resources. Do we need more community buy-in to mentor youth?
The buy-in one I might put in as mindset, but thanks, Michelle. And how about power questions?
I was going to say one for resource.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm thinking relative to our current situation and having to meet by Zoom, access to technology, access to transportation. How do you even go about getting outside of your home and communicating with people who have access to the resources they can provide?
Really good thought. Okay, and we're going to jump into the last ones. We don't run out of time. Did we say 10:54 or 11:54?
11:05.
5. Okay.
Yeah, she said 11:05.
So the last one is a power question, and that is, in what ways are local power dynamics, for example, who participates in the decision making, whose voice matters, what ways are those contributing to the issue?
This one, to me, I immediately think of bias because we talk a lot right now. We're doing a lot of education in our agency on equity, inclusion, diversity. And if you don't have a diverse population who is in charge and they don't understand and they have some sort of bias around the types of teens who become pregnant and the types of kids we're looking at and the merit that they deserve, I think it'll definitely impact regulation and, legislation.
So you said, just so I'm clear, so question would be, are there diverse individuals in leadership positions?
You made it much more concise than I did, yes.
Is that it? I just want to be sure. Diverse individuals in leadership positions.
That's what I was getting at, yes.
Okay, got it.
This is personal experience too. So the people in power, like there might be a administrator at a school where their personal beliefs are getting in the way of so the needs of what the students might need based on the data. So the power would be, based on school administration, are any personal values or beliefs getting in the way of what students may need?
Right. So with those in authority, are there personal values that, yeah, really good question.
And then ultimately, how do politics, I mean, the health department has grants for these, but like politics at the federal level affects funding. It's not really a local question, but like politics are involved in all of this with funding.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts that we missed on those three?
Greg must be busy because I know he has a lot to say. He must be tied up with a student.
Likely. Okay, Abby, you feel good about?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure you're supported in that area. Okay, I'm gonna jump out. You've got 30 seconds to go back. Look at all these smiling faces.
Amy, we're actually laughing because of the actual conversation that we had in our room.
Oh boy.
Or lack thereof, but very.
I just like the smiling faces.
We were cut off because I was just getting ready to say, Jennifer, you should have a quick question.
Oops, sorry about that.
Jennifer, can you tell everyone all the things that we came up with? Because they're amazing.
Well, what we came up with were a lot of clarifying questions. And it looked like maybe the whole idea of a system scan on this broad scale was a little bit too much to tackle. Everybody understanding the mindsets, power questions, resources, and things like that. Some of us are deep 4 years plus into able change, and some are not.
Yeah.
So I think tackling, we do system scans on a mini level, and we focus on one. Yeah, and I think that was.
Yeah, no, that's great insight, and it is complicated. I mean, in going through and doing these steps, it is a lot. It is like, I think the point of the exercise was to really just understand that you can't just look at, are there, resources in the community? Like there is so much that gets in the way of tackling a problem. So yeah, a system scan is not like, oh, I have a little problem, but something like teen pregnancy is going to take years of trying to develop the right questions and reach the right audiences and things like that. So we wholeheartedly acknowledge that we picked kind of one of the most difficult ones, but it's not something you have to do, but it is really, it's getting to the point of you really have to hit all these different things, because you might break down a barrier of a resource, and then you might have a mindset and power that is, gonna not allow you to move forward. So yeah, it is complicated. This is one way of looking at it to make sure, but it's a lot.
I was just thinking you need authentic engagement with the actual question, the actual clover.
Yes,
you actually have to authentically engage, like just going, let's just come up with some questions. Yeah. You actually need to.
Nancy, gold star for the authentic engagement on the authentic engagement. That's right.
And we do talk about that. We'll actually get to that in a minute because we do want to make sure that the questions now, as you develop the questions, you'll change them depending on whether you're asking teens or providers or school administrators, things like that. The way you ask is really, really important. The way you
See,
are
Amy,
talking. Yeah.
Amy, that was the problem. We were already doing that.
Yes, you were getting to the next.
We were. So the reason perhaps that we came back to the main group with no developed questions, but really, really great conversation is because it's hard, right, for us to move from a place of, instead of just developing questions, to move right to, well, who are we asking?
Yeah.
And so there is a piece in there too where, and we also talked a lot about, excuse me, like, I think Nancy brought up around mindset. We were talking about mindset and beliefs, and she had mentioned something about even like acknowledging different cultures when you're doing this. And so we had a really lovely, thoughtful discussion around this big, huge system scan point in the system scan discussion. And I do want to follow up with Rhonda. I know Rhonda had some connection issues in the beginning, and maybe felt a little bit, I just wanted to catch you up a little bit. You had a question at the very end of our breakout around, we were talking about like collecting data and that sort of thing. And when you start with a system scan, you already have your problem statement, which for us maybe would have been, there's an increase of unwanted teen pregnancy in Jackson County, right? And so the questions around the cloverleaf are really like drilling down why that is. And so to your point of, you had said like, well, is there more teen pregnancy on this side of town or this side of town, right? All of that is such great data to gather as you're putting together the picture of what it looks like and why it's happening in different places. So absolutely, like as you're gathering more data and disaggregating it, and I'd use the example of like, maybe at Smith High School, there's like 5 times the rate of pregnancy than Jones High School. Like, well, why is that happening? We have to figure out why. And so that really is, once you have your data, that cloverleaf is the tool to figure out why is this happening. Let's ask some questions to figure out the why and really drill down. So please also remember that we are together just for a short time today, and we will not solve all of the world's problems, maybe like half, but we will also not leave you high and dry, and we have lots and lots of resources for you. And if you leave today thinking I'm very confused or this actually is not clear in my mind, we would love to chat with you more, and we promise we will not leave you confused. So know that we have Amy.
No, I'm just kidding.
Like,
I'm going to jump in and I'm going to give Abby a minute to report out because our group did do some work on questions. So we had some regulation questions, some resource questions, and some power questions. Abby, you want to do a quick report back?
Yeah, I'll do a few out of each category. So we had the expert Michelle White in our group, so we had some assistants.
We were loaded with lots of teen pregnancy people.
Yeah. Okay, so in regards to regulation, some of the questions to consider: are there laws regarding the distribution of contraception in schools? Are there guidelines on education and literature to educate within schools regarding sexual education? I'll do one more. Another one, what are the policies regarding who can teach evidence-based programs and how does it work with school policies and schedules?
Oh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Resources. Is the cost of contraception for males or females a barrier? Does insurance cover contraception or education? Are there funds or grants available to facilitate education? And are there qualified individuals to teach the evidence-based programs? Power questions. Are there diverse individuals in leadership positions that understand the population? Do school administrators hold biases that could impact the implementation of educational programs? And how do those in political positions, how do they impact funding and implementation?
Oh my word. That's
We
good.
were
I
a little
know.
heavy loaded. Sorry. I should have
Yeah,
split
I
the
mean,
groups a
there
little
No,
was
better.
that's great. That's great. But
Um,
like, you know, in our group though, Susie brought up, I think Susie brought up an example too of, right? Like, I think she heard of a school administrator or a teacher who what did not believe in their beliefs were impacting the curriculum, and their beliefs were driving the sex ed curriculum, right? And so which kind of mirrors Abby's example, the question of like, are there beliefs or of people in power, which kind of like both touches on both of those characteristics, but like, oh, well, maybe that's affecting the rate of teen pregnancy because of this person in power and their beliefs. And so, and we talked in our group too about the questions that are asked will result in data being collected. And then like, well, how do we make the change then? So are these questions like getting to the root? And to me, we talked about very similar things.
Okay,
That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome, rich discussion, and we could go on a lot. So again, this is overwhelming. This cloverleaf can be like really get you down rabbit holes, I call. And there are other tools to use, but this is just, it's getting us to think outside the box. It's getting us to take all of the different factors and characteristics into consideration when we're reaching out to do a system scan. So we're going to move on. Sarah, if you're going to share your screen, we'll move on to like, now we're looking at what perspectives and what settings are we going to engage to understand our population.
I'm going to do that. So now this is our step 3. So we have, as a team, developed a set of questions that are going to address all of the different characteristics of our problem statement. So we want to make sure that we are engaging people who are experiencing the problem. So unwanted teen pregnancy. So if this was our problem, then young women in Jackson County who are experiencing unwanted pregnancy would be the first row, right? Those who are providing services to that population, those supporting at the local level, maybe stakeholders or people making decisions, or people who are maybe family members in churches, and then those deciding on changes and how resources are used. So like local officials, funders, institutions. And so I know, again, as a reminder, we talked about it in our group as well. It's hard to like develop questions without thinking about who you're going to ask. But if you have your set of questions that will really get to the root of the problem, then making sure that you're reaching out to all of the important people will then help you like gather all of the data in a comprehensive way. We did have a quick wanting to like your perspective, like thinking about if we were to do this and we have our set of questions, who all would you think it would be important to engage? What perspectives would be important to capture? If we think about, and you can be Jackson specific, like people who provide services, you can either type in the chat or unmute yourself to offer your thoughts of like what perspectives would be important to capture in this step.
Well, while people are typing, I'm going to actually just jump into, because when we're looking about perspectives, we really want to make sure we're oversampling those. So if your problem statement shows that there's unwanted pregnancy, if you have within your analyzing the data drilled down deeper, that you know that it's African Americans that might live in the city that are young, then that's who you want to oversample. Those really people that are affected by it, you have to make sure that that's one of your things. But yeah, teen moms, excellent. Nancy, that's a really good point. What are some providers, some community things? Young men, yes. Grandparents, yeah.
What about those who think it's a problem and those who don't?
Yes.
In
Yep.
regards to culture?
Yeah, because that's where you'll bring your mindset questions in, right? So, and when, you know, when you're forming these questions and when you're reaching out to these folks, you really, I mean, those who think it's don't, you really want to drill deep into the questions that you're asking. So you might ask the question about, what do you think about teen pregnancy, just general. And when they say, I don't think it's a problem, drill deeper into that. Can you tell me why? Can you give me a little bit more about that? Is there an example you could give me of why you don't think, or are there, you know, so when you're reaching these diverse audiences, you really want to make sure you're drilling deep. We have young men, school administrators, health department, minority leaders, faith-based leaders, teens of all ages. Yeah, you've got 15-year-olds and 19-year-olds. They're all important perspectives. Parents, caregivers of teens, clinic staff at the health department.
Excuse me.
Parenthood. Yeah, Greg.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. I really like the part where they said faith-based leaders, because you know, I think that's a perspective that we've been kind of missing. Michelle White and the team at our health department, you know, they do a lot of reaching out to the teens and different agencies of what's going on. But I think we're missing this perspective of the faith-based leaders.
Yeah.
I think that could take us to the next level. So I think, you know, reaching out to them, that would be good in this thing right here.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There are a lot of things and folks in the community that are not traditionally reached, that we don't usually reach out to, and they have a wealth. They're right there on the front lines and have a wealth of information. DHS, preteens, health department, Center for Family Health, Allegiance, yeah. Church leadership, yes. Teen dads, youth groups, clinic staff.
I love that too. Yeah, just because it really talks and how everyone has mentioned the, like, all perspectives, right? Like not just even, I love this, that people are saying like teen dads or kids who are not having sex, or the, like, I just think the importance of gathering all perspectives, like to paint the full picture. I think that's great.
Yeah, because we've got recovery community. Yeah, unconventional people that we don't often hear or listen to. And again, it's we talked a little bit about, it's the way you're asking and the relationship that you have with folks. And if you don't have a relationship with someone in recovery or in the recovery community, reach out to people that do and have them be, you know, your liaison to that. But you're going to get, you know, really good perspectives if you're using the connections and relationships you currently have.
I wanted to just kind of emphasize one that I had on here is when we're talking to people, we can't always assume that it's an unwanted pregnancy. And that is based on, you know, the environment. It's you know, based on their own personal feelings. I mean, we have to understand that part. So I think I would go more from the perspective of teenage pregnancy, not necessarily unwanted.
Right.
Because some teens know this is what they want to do.
Right. And when you're reaching out with a mindset question.
And you don't, right.
Yeah. Your question needs to be, what do you think about teen pregnancy? Some teens might say it's amazing and I can't wait to get pregnant and I'm going to be able to show off my baby and everyone's going to coo and ooh and ah over them. And so, yeah, this isn't making assumptions. That's it's a good point. You have to check those assumptions ahead of time and keep the questions pretty open-ended. And you might have folks that say teens should never be getting pregnant and teens that should be saying it's not such a bad thing. So good point, Rhonda.
And to your point, Rhonda, I think just to clarify, our example of there's a high rate of unwanted teen pregnancy would mean that in this pretend situation, we have already drilled down and maybe pulled out from the amount of teens that are pregnant, which ones wanted to be pregnant and which ones did not. And that is our data piece. So to your point, I agree with you. Check assumptions, never assume in anyone if ever they want to be pregnant or don't. But in this situation, I would like to just make the clarification that because we stated it very clearly, that data has already been disaggregated and pulled out of the piece. So yes, thank you for bringing that up, but we would never, of course, assume that a teen pregnancy is unwanted or wanted until we clarify. No, but I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, absolutely.
No. Amy knows me, so I'm just going in another.
No, it's good. It's really good to make sure that we're checking our assumptions at the door because we tend to jump to assumptions. So we talked a little bit about who we're going to reach out to, and now we're going to talk a little bit about what methods we can use to collect the data. And we touched a little bit about this ahead of time before we moved into the system scan concept, but there are a plethora of ways. These are some of them. So we've got regularly scheduled meetings, gatherings, conversations through direct service touches, small group conversations, interviews. Photo Voice is an amazing tool that you can use, and we might touch on this in another learning convening, but giving folks in the community a camera and getting their perspective on it and letting them go through and take pictures of what they see is the issues and things like that. So conversations are great, and doing them at, like we talked about, direct service touches. There are so many times, I think Greg mentioned earlier, you could just sit down on a bench and say, how's it going? What do you think about this? And take a walk in the neighborhood and, talk to neighbors, things like that. Surveys we've all used, intake forms, staff surveys. We can use them in our staff meetings, things like that. Observations, community audits, like an immersion. So observations and immersion. Take a walk down into a neighborhood that you're not used to. Take a walk and go to festivals or gatherings that maybe outside, and it gives you a better understanding when you're walking some of the walk of different people in our community. Impact assessment, we have the health impact assessment. There are racial equity impact assessments. Those can be a way of collecting some of the data that we want. And then there are a lot of data sets and policy records that are already in existence. MiFi data, which is Michigan Youth, I'm not gonna remember.
Profile for Healthy Youth.
Profile for Healthy Youth, yes. So MiFi data, vital statistics, when you're kind of going through, there's a ton of data already there. So a combination of all of these things, it's not just taking the data from a website or just talking to, your staff, it's using a combination. So we're gonna flip to the next one, and we're gonna go back to our annotate for a minute. Go up to the top of your screen where there's view options. Bring down the third where it says annotate. You can use any stamp you want. You can use a check mark, but if you feel like using hearts or question marks, feel free, and put a check mark or a stamp on some of the ones that you've used in your organization or ways that you've reached out to community members. Excellent. Large group meetings, yep, interviews.
Lots of conversations.
Yeah, lots of conversations. That's awesome. Home visiting, yeah, we've got a couple on home visiting. That, you've got people that are already going out into the homes. Add 1 or 2 questions to the things that they're already asking to gather your data. Lots on intake forms, staff surveys, and those are important perspectives, social media surveys.
Yeah, lots of data sets, using current data sources. That's great. I like that. I like this too, because it helps give examples of things like maybe I hadn't thought of that one. Oh, that's a good one to add to my list,
And there are probably lots that I'm missing on this list. So if you have an idea of a way to reach out that is not on here, type that in the chat, because we're all learning every day.
That's great. Thank you all for sharing. And then don't forget also to hit your red X to exit out. Otherwise, you will be check marking the rest of our presentation, which could be exciting, but maybe not productive. Amy, would you mind, can you clear us out? Oh, wait, I think I got it. Sorry, I'm just a little bit.
I don't know, can I?
I got it.
Okay.
Maybe. All right. So just a reminder of where we are in the circle. So we started here, and this is kind of how we'll wind up today, but really looking at this really important action learning process and how much work is involved in between each step. So just trying to use our data to look at understanding root causes. A lot of people think, all right, perfect, great, let's move right along into designing powerful strategies, but really there's so much work and messiness and authentic everything that has to happen between each step and in each arrow. To that point, we are hoping that you all will join us, because we want to dig into the next step of the action learning plan next month, which is on November 18th. We're going to have our next learning convening, and we're going to talk about making sense of the data. So we are going to, it's really the next step in the action learning process after we've taken our questions and gathered the data. I mean, if you If you have data that you want to bring, that's great. We're not assuming that anyone is going to have done work to bring, but we want to help everyone with this process again as we authentically engage people, taking data, what to do with it, because eventually we want to move forward into planning thoughtful strategies. But we don't want to skip over this really important step of the making sense of the data. Amy, do you want to jump in? Anything?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We also will be following up after this with SurveyMonkey because we want your input both on whether or not this is valuable. We hope it's been valuable, and also on maybe ideas that you might be. So making sense of the data is obviously a clear next step for us to help kind of, because you're gonna be overwhelmed with the perspectives and the things that you get. So we will be walking through that a little bit, but we'll look forward to hearing back from you too. We'll follow up with many of the tools. At the end of the slideshow, there is resources that you can connect to that will have, but it can be overwhelming. It is a very complicated process, and there are toolkits for each area of how to engage people, what to engage. We are available. Reach out to us, and if you're just stuck in a certain spot, and if you've got a lot of things that are going, reach out to us, and we hopefully will be able to hone in on some of the tools that you can use that might help demystify it or decomplicate it a little bit. And reach out to each other. A lot of this, we're in a network together, and a lot of folks have done it really well. And so if you have something you want to share with the group, certainly forward it to Sarah and I, and we can pass it on to folks too with ways that, to engage. Shameless plug for our website. We have a new website, jacksoncollaborativenetwork.org. Sarah, do you want to flip to that one? So if you have questions, if you want to reach out, if you want to learn more about network happenings, there is also data on here with the community health assessment data we'll be including on there. It will announce upcoming events. So if you want to know what's next, it will be on here. But I want to point out that in the jacksoncollaborativenetwork.org website, there is a toolkit. Many of the things are on the toolkit. There's Able Change, Collective Impact, Design Thinking, a lot of different resources on here. And in there, we have a community engagement team here in Jackson that had worked for many years to talk about authentic engagement and to go through some groups that are doing it well and how they did it well. It talks a lot in this toolkit, the authentic engagement toolkit, about making authentic connections, about relationship building, how to approach people, how not to approach people, what works, what doesn't work. So we encourage you to get on the website and click on that authentic engagement toolkit, because it really was a culmination of many years of hard work from some really thoughtful folks that have done things well and want to guide organizations to be able to do that well too. So feel free to get on and use that toolkit. And I think that about wraps it up.
It does, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for everyone for your time today and engagement. It was really lovely hearing everyone's different perspectives and voices and all of your thoughts. Please know, like Amy said, that we will follow up in a lot of different ways. But if you, please also feel free to follow up with us if you have other questions or something is left unanswered or you're unsure about something. But it just is lovely to engage with you all today. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Thank
afternoon.
you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. What they doing? What everybody doing?
Sarah, do you know if I have to save this chat or will it automatically save? Greg, we just wrapped up if you're asking what we're doing.
Okay. No,
But yeah, I know it's hard because we're doing 6 different things. So yeah, we just wrapped up.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg. You have great insight. We appreciate all you do in our community. It's awesome.
Thank you guys for all what you do too, for putting this together.
Thank
Appreciate
you. Thanks. Thanks so much.
I just leave. Oh, okay. Is it on? Yes, I am.
I think you have to hit leave and then like leave. I think you have to commit to leaving twice.
Wow. Or we can stay and chit chat.
No.
I'm just trying to save. Do I save the record the chat?
I think the owner of the meeting
Okay, so that
saves
should be
it.
saved.
Does it save it automatically? I think I have an option to save it as well. I have an option that says save chat at the bottom. Do you? The 3 little buttons.
No.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Did I leave?
Chat saved.
You're still here,
You're
bud.
still with us,
That's
Greg.
okay.
It
I
looks like
can-
you're going to have to work with us all day.
Oh, wait a minute. Here, I got some techie guys. Look, I was on a Zoom and I'm trying to leave the Zoom. I can't even do it.
I can end the meeting too.